Hello friends and welcome to the Southern Mountain Kitchen. Today we're going to make fudgy brownies. So what you see on my counter is what we're going to use to make these. There's really not a lot of ingredients going into this, but we're going to make this a little bit more on the fudgy side by adding extra things. Like we're going to use some chocolate chips in here. We're using a little bit extra eggs and everything. We're just basically giving this the consistency of a really soft fudgy inside, which is what we're really going for. We're not trying to do cake like brownies or anything like that. We really want this to be fudgy and kind of gooey in the middle, just to a point to where it really tastes great. And if you do serve it the way I did, I put some ice cream with it, and this just worked so well to make something that tastes so good. So what you see is what we're going to use, and we're going to get started on this. So we're going to start out with our butter, which we have about 5 tablespoons of unsalted butter here that we've melted. You want to actually make sure that you melt it up enough to where it can be mixed together. Then in our large bowl, we're going to add into this at least a teaspoon of vanilla extract. Then we have 2 large eggs plus 1 yolk. So you're just going to add that extra yolk into it. Now, once we get all of this in our bowl, we're going to mix this with our mixer a little bit to get it blended together, get it frothy, chop up those yolks to make sure that they separate and mix into the whole mix. We just want to get this really light and airy before we add anything else to it, because the whole thing here was we want to make sure these eggs are really broken up. So we're just going to do this for about a minute or so, and then we're going to start adding in more ingredients to this. So once we see this is really mixed up, we're going to add in 1/3 cup of vegetable oil. And then after that, we're going to mix it a little bit more to get that oil mixed in with the eggs and everything. Anywhere about this time, if you want to preheat your oven, you can go ahead and put it at 350 degrees because this will bake anywhere from 25 to 30 minutes time. So after we get that mixed up, we're going to add in 1 1/4 cups of sugar. And I have mine separated here because I'm going to actually put the 1/4 cup in, mix it, and then add the cup in after that, just to make sure the sugar gets completely mixed in with what's in the bowl. So just go ahead and keep mixing and add the sugar in as you go. We want to make sure that when we're mixing though, we go around the sides and bottom of our bowl to pull all of this together. So go ahead and mix it, make sure everything is working together here. We really don't want any like lumps of sugar or anything that didn't get mixed through. So probably want to go ahead and do this for a couple minutes just to make sure everything is incorporated together. And you're going to notice as you're doing this is going to get really light and fluffy, and that's something we want to see happening. So just keep going, like I said, for about 2 minutes. Now you can tell when everything is off the bottom, because if you're holding a hand mixer and you're pushing down the bowl, if you don't feel a lot of grit or anything down there, that means you've really mixed that sugar through really well, and that's good. The next thing we're going to do after this is mix together our dry ingredients. So get this completely mixed, and we're going to take a separate large bowl to go for the next part of this. So once we get this mixed together, we're going to sit it to the side. And the first thing you're going to need when we move on to the next part is some all-purpose flour. So we're going to use 1/2 cup of all-purpose flour. Then we're going to add in 3/4 cup of cocoa powder. And at this point, we're just going to like mix this up a little bit to break it up. And you could use a whisk or whatever for this, because sometimes when you get cocoa powder out of your container, it'll have little lumps in it that need to be broken up. And that's the whole purpose of what we're doing now. So we're just going to mix it from side to side all the way through the bottom to get that totally mixed in before we add the other ingredients to this. So once we get past that part, we're going to add 1/4 teaspoon of salt. And then next, we're going to add in 1/8 teaspoon of baking soda. And then after that, 1 tablespoon of cornstarch. So keep mixing it, then add in your cornstarch. And then that's all the dry ingredients we're putting into this once the cornstarch is added. Then afterwards, we're going to mix the wet and dry ingredients together. But use your whisk as much as possible to try to make sure that everything we've added in here, including like the salt and all, gets distributed really well. So once that cornstarch is in, just whisk that really quickly. And then I said we're going to mix the wet and dry together. Now when we go to mix the wet and the dry into the same bowl together, we don't want to pour in all the wet at once. We kind of want to take it in about like half and half, just to a point where we're pulling as much in as we can mix together to where we don't really pour too much in there and have so much of the wet mix that it's so hard to work it into the bowl. So basically that's where you're going to do the half of it. So just do what you think is about half. And then once you scrape the side of this off, just go ahead and mix in what just went into the dry a little bit to get it all in there. Because sometimes if you pour it all in at once, it's kind of hard to get it going. And one thing about this mix is once you get it completely together, this is going to be really like a fudgy consistency, and it's going to get stiff and a little hard to mix. So that's one reason why I don't use a mixer to do this. I'm doing it by hand because I can actually get in there and mix in everything as it goes. But as I said, putting in a little at a time is actually going to make this a little easier on you to mix it. But at this point, you can go ahead and dump the rest of the bowl into the dry mix. Now, again, if you haven't set your temperature of your oven to 350, get that going. 25 to 30 minutes, and you can always check this when it's baking with a toothpick to make sure at the end to see if it's done. But in the meantime, we're going to get this all mixed together here. Now, once we get this really going and get to the level of a fudgy consistency, that's where we're going to add in the chocolate chips. But we want to hold those to the end because we want to get this really mixed through. And as you can see with mine, it's starting to thicken up, and that means, you're going to put a little bit more arm muscle into this to get it mixed through, because you really have to stir this to get it going. And that's where you're going to get that fudginess when you bake this, because like in a regular brownie, you can get these ones like a box mix that's really light and easy to mix and there's nothing to it. This is not a box mix. This is from scratch. So you're going to have to really work it to get everything through there. And then, scrape the sides and the bottom. Make sure that there isn't any of this powder hanging around from where it was already in the bottom of this bowl. So keep going, mix it up. And once you get this to a point where you're not seeing any kind of ribbons of any of the powder or any of the dry, and you scrape your sides and your bottom, you should be getting to something that looks a lot like this, where it's really fudgy. This is where we're bringing in the chocolate chips and using 3/4 of a cup and pour them in, and then we're going to mix them throughout. So just use your spatula and move them through, because as you get this going, you're going to mix them through this, and then when we pour them into what we're baking them in, they're going to get distributed really well. So just go ahead and mix them up. Now, when you go to use a pan to fix this, and you can use like a glass pan, you can use like the regular metal kind, whatever you want to use. Mine, I think, was like a 9x9, because I used like kind of a squarish type one to do this in. And basically, I like doing it like that because, it's just one of these things where it's the right height when you put this in there. Because, the bigger the pan, the more this spreads out, the less you're going to get some height out of this. And I really wanted a little bit of height, so we had that fudgy consistency inside. So, have my baking dish here, spraying it with some non-stick cooking spray, and then I'm just going to pour the entire contents into this. And then spread them back and forth until they're really even. You don't want to like get all piled in the middle or whatever. Just spread it out, get it in there. And then once your oven is up to temperature, like I said, 350 degrees, this is going to go in there. So just go ahead and get all of this out and into your pan. And like I said, if you're doing something like this, like if you used a pan that was like an 8x8, 9x9, it's kind of ideal for this because it's going to give you the thickness to let you have that gooiness in the center of it. And then get it all in there, make sure you haven't wasted any of this, and just kind of spread this back and forth to make sure that everything in that pan is evenly distributed. And that'll move your chocolate chips around a little bit too to make sure they're even as well. So once this is all done, once you've got it all spread out, you are ready to go into your oven with this. Like I said, 25 to 30 minutes. I would go in at about 25 minutes and check this to see how it's doing. You use a toothpick, pull it in and out, find out if it's kind of wet on the inside or not. Because even though it's fudgy, it shouldn't come out that wet. And once it goes into the oven, it'll come back looking like this. And this is so amazing because it rose up really well. It has a great gooey inside to it. And it's just basically what we wanted for a fudgy brownie. And it just has such an amazing taste. Now, when I served mine, I did it with some ice cream and it looks something like this. And I got to tell you, this is really a treat to eat. And I think you just might like this a lot. I hope you liked this video, and if you did, please like and subscribe. And if you get a chance, check out the Southern Mountain Kitchen website, where you can get a free recipe, check out the cookbooks available from the Southern Mountain Kitchen, and if you'd like to, you could order a cookbook at a discounted price, cheaper than Amazon, with shipping that is also cheaper than Amazon. So if you get a chance, check it out, and I hope you have a great day.